A lot of noise out there in regards to the real estate market. It's like NAR settlement, what's that? Buyer representation agreement, what's that? Lots of different things that are happening out there right now in the news. And get the facts straight, here they are. Lots of noise and friction out there when it comes to buying a house. Is it positive? Is it negative? Where do we go from here? Well, I just want to share with you on this is that I believe it's actually positive news because yes, there'll be a little bit more paperwork to do, but it's going to elevate the experience for you, the buyer. In short, with this NAR settlement, the National Association Realtor Settlement, is that all compensation, which used to be called commission, used to be where me, the broker of Century 21, I would collect, let's say, a 5% commission, and I would give it to a co-broke and share the other percentage with the other side. In this case, under the seller standpoint, is that when you go sell a property or go list a property, the seller and I are going to be sitting down and discussing compensation for me, the listing agent. And that's what we do. We sign. I certainly let them know that a buyer may come in and ask for the seller to pay their compensation for the buyer's broker. So that's basically what's happening on the seller side. There's really, business as usual pretty much on that, still selling the property, still marketing the property the same. As a buyer, this is where the big change has come in. A buyer now, when they go in as of August 17th, needs to have a buyer representation agreement signed with an agent before that agent can actually show the home. If you're looking to purchase a home, it's going to be the same as if you were selling a home. If you sold a home before, you usually met with what? 2, 3, 4 real estate agents to interview them to see if they are a good fit to sell your home. Well, it's now going to be the same for a buyer. If you are a buyer that's out looking for homes, you are now going to need to, in my personal opinion, interview 2, 3 different agents because you may have to pay some type of compensation, or you need to realize and understand, can that agent negotiate that compensation in my offer to allow the seller to cover those fees. But basically what it is that you are signing a buyer representation agreement that you will be paying the broker or the buyer's agent, your agent if you're buying a home, their compensation. Now, don't be afraid on that because most of the sellers that I've actually just listed 4 houses this week, they're all agreeing to and are agreeable to paying some type of compensation. So in my form, it actually says right here, buyer instructs broker to request seller to pay buyer's broker compensation in every offer. So you can do that. There will be some sellers out there that are going to say, I don't want to pay compensation. And you as a buyer is going to have to decide if that's the house that you want to purchase. And if it is, then you will have to compensate your buyer broker some type of compensation. So don't be afraid that you feel like I'm going to have to pay a higher interest rate, which they actually have come down recently, and higher interest rate on my down payment, and I've got to pay a commission or a compensation. That's not true. You can, in most cases, find a seller who's willing to work with you to be able to make the deal work and pay that agent some type of compensation for you. The false news out there is that you can lock them in, you can lock the buyer in, you have to be locked in for 12 months or 6 months or 3 months. It comes down to negotiating. You could actually use a piece of paper and say, Eric, go show me one house. I signed a piece of paper saying, I'm going to go show you this one house. I also have on my paper that if you want to cancel our agreement, I can put a certain date down. So be careful, buyers, going out and actually signing just a piece of paper. If an agent says, oh, I need to get this thing signed from you, and let's say they're locking them in for several months, really typically a 3-month commitment is probably going to be good. For me in 30 years, I basically kind of looked at it as I go out and take a buyer out, we go out, jump in the car, we go take a look at some homes. I felt that if they felt that we had good rapport, I like them, they like me, then we move forward. And that's basically kind of unfortunately not what it's going to happen now. And we sign a piece of paper, we work together. Now they kind of want you to sign a piece of paper before we actually go out and actually look at homes. People and agents might use the word law, which it's not a law. It's more of a rule, regulation. So I've spoken to probably 7 buyers in the last couple weeks that most of them didn't even really understand kind of what that was. So if you choose to work with me, I'd be happy to sit down and chat with you in regards to that. If you're in the local area, we sit down in my office, you come in, I'll explain kind of the value of a buyer's agent, and I'll explain the purpose and the reason why to work with me of my 30 years of experience, and that negotiating of being able to receive that compensation in the offer that we write. But the first thing that we would do is we would sign a buyer representation agreement. We'd agree upon a compensation that if I could not get it paid by the seller, then that would be something that we would do. We decide what areas and locations. It can be just by one address. I had somebody call this morning and says, I want to look at one home. So I'm sending him something here by just saying, let's look at this house. If you feel comfortable with me, I feel comfortable with you, then we can sign a longer agreement. I signed for a 3-month commitment is what I put in there as well. And we also have a cancellation agreement that if there is something where you want to go in a different direction, we certainly can do that. I'm not going to force any buyer to work with me. If a buyer wants to work with me and use my 30 years of experience of some top negotiation skills, I'm super happy to work with you. All right, so you guys, if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to guide you and work you through that. Again, there's going to be changes of open houses as well. So you will need to go into an open house and you're going to probably need to sign a piece of paper that you are being represented or not being represented. Can a buyer sign multiple representation agreements? You probably could, but it may not be super ethical to do that. So you are going to be being asked, just as the history of life, I always ask a buyer, do you have a working relationship with an agent? And if you say no, I take them out. If you say yes, then I basically answer some questions and then move on. But you guys just need to realize there's a little bit of change. It's not the end of the world. It's just a little bit of piece of some paperwork to work with, and having that agent that you choose who's going to be able to be a good negotiator, who's got the experience to be able to go in and write an offer for you and negotiate that compensation from the seller, so then you can be less worried about it. All right, guys, subscribe to our channel and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, great.